Welcome back to the Movie Man. Today I will show you a 2022 Korean mystery drama series, Connect. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. Ha Dong-seo is a good-looking man with a very strange ability. One night, while he is strolling around the streets, singing his self-composed song "A High Hanging Metals," some organ traffickers kidnap him and take him away. Then, his body is dissected bit by bit. Surprisingly, Dong-seo can see everything happening despite him being almost dead. After a while, the surgeon takes out both his eyes and keeps them on a tray. However, the pupils look as if they can still see. The surgeon notices this, but before he can act, he receives a phone call. While he is away, shockingly, strange tentacle-like things come out of Dong-seo's wounds and they start healing. Then, he comes back to life and slowly rises up. As the surgeon watches in horror, Dong-seo grabs one of his eyes and places it near his eye socket. Lo and behold, the strange tentacle-like things pull the eye and fix it in its place. Dong-seo tries retrieving his other eye, but at the same time, the surgeon summons for backup. So, he jumps out of the window and escapes. Fast forward to several months, a strange occurrence happens in the same city. One morning, a beautiful sculpture of a woman appears out of nowhere, and this attracts the attention of a lot of people. As they are curiously clicking pictures, suddenly, blood starts dripping from it. In a shocking turn of events, it is revealed that the sculpture isn't made up of clay, but it is an actual human molded to look like a statue. In no time, the police, led by Chief Inspector Jang Won, arrive there and take the body away. However, even after hours of investigation, all they find is a strange mark on the body, which looks like a combination of the alphabets P and L. Following this, we are taken to Dong-seo, who is now living an anonymous life in the city. He is wearing an eye patch to hide his missing eye, and seems pretty shaken up by the incident. One night, while he is practicing his songs, suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his eye socket and experiences a vision. In it, he sees a first-person view of someone looking at a picture of zodiac signs on his computer. One of the symbols in the picture is the PL word that was carved on the deceased girl from earlier. Dong-seo also notices an array of sketches around the person's table. Once his strange vision is over, he deduces that he is seeing through his other eye, which has been transplanted to someone else. The next day, as Dong-seo is at his workplace, a junkyard, he notices some thugs harassing his old boss. He tries to make them stop but instead gets beaten up. Then, one of the thugs brings out a knife and swings it at Dong-seo, hoping that he will dodge it, but the latter doesn't move a bit. Because of this, Dong-seo's ear gets sliced off, and falls to the ground. The thugs are terrified at the sight and they immediately run away. And after they are gone, Dong-seo uses his mysterious ability to attach the ear back to his body. Meanwhile, the organ traffickers are on the lookout for Dong-seo, as his immortal body could be worth millions. Chief Inspector Jang also notices him near the crime scenes and suspects that he is up to something. At night, Dong-seo tries to drown his anxiety by immersing himself in music. He grabs a guitar and attempts to play his song "A High Hanging Metals." However, since it has been long, he is unable to remember the chords. So, he goes to his anonymous YouTube channel and plays the song in slow motion to grasp the chords. At the same time, the guy from his vision also plays the same song, and as soon as he does so, his eyes start hurting. Dong-seo also experiences excruciating pain in his eye. Fed up with the weird occurrences, he decides to head to the same place where he had been abducted and look for his other eye. Unfortunately, when he arrives at the place, one of the organ traffickers immediately recognizes him and calls for backup. Then, a lengthy chase ensues. Dong-seo narrowly escapes and attempts to flee, but just then, a girl named Lisa approaches him. She appears to know about his condition and slices his leg to check if the rumors are real. To her shock, Dong-seo heals his wound in the blink of an eye and escapes. Following this, we are shown the same man from Dong-seo's visions, going through his sketchbook. Shockingly, the sketches are of the people who have been killed and turned into statues. This proves that the person who has Dong-seo's other eye is the murderer. In the next scene, we are introduced to a woman named Lee Rang, who is heading to work on a bus. Along the way, she gets bored and starts listening to the High Hanging Metals song on YouTube, which has apparently become viral. After a while, She reaches her workplace and notices a large crowd outside. They are staring at a human statue, which turns out to be the latest murder in the city. After a while, Lee is with her crush and team leader Jin Sop, who happens to be quiet and arrogant. To break the awkwardness, Lee starts humming the high-hanging metals song, and with this, Jin Sop feels a sudden pain in his eye. Dong-so also experiences the same, and he starts getting a first-person view through the murderer's eye. He sees the woman Lee, and her workplace. This finally reveals that the murderer is none other than Jin Sop himself. We also get to know that both of Dong-so's eyes recognize his song, so whenever it plays, they start reconnecting through telepathic means. At night, Dong-so gets another vision where he gets a better look at Jin Sop's sketchbook. He sees the words "a corpse art" and decides to look it up on Google. To his horror, he finds pictures of the recent murders and finally realizes that the person who has his other eye is in fact the culprit. The very next morning, he wastes no time and heads to the location he saw in his visions. He notices Lee and instantly recognizes her. So, he approaches her and inquires about the man she was with the previous day, but as expected, Lee believes that he is a creep and walks away. Now, Dong-so has no leads because he doesn't even know what the murderer looks like. So, he decides to find more clues about him. He goes to a horoscope specialist and asks her about the cryptic PL sign. She reveals that it refers to the planet Pluto and is generally regarded as a bad omen. Dong-so then mentions the date of the recent 2 murder cases and asks if there is any connection between them. The specialist points out that they are definitely connected, and also explains that the next similar date is the 25th of December, which is tomorrow. This alarms Dong-so as he realizes that the next murder is going to happen the next day. He wants to stop it from happening but doesn't know where to start. Meanwhile, Lee arrives at Jin Sop's house and makes love with him, oblivious to the fact that he is a cold-blooded killer. After they are done, Jin Sop heads to take a shower while Lee scans through his house. She comes across his sketchbook and goes through it out of curiosity. Lee is taken aback when she sees the gruesome sketches of the recently murdered victims and comes to know that her crush Jin Sop is actually the killer. The following day, it is 25th December, and as Dong-so had predicted, a statued corpse is found in an isolated field. A huge crowd gathers, and among them are the organ traffickers and Inspector Jang. Unfortunately, both the parties notice Dong-so and start chasing after him. The organ traffickers get to him first, but in the nick of time, the mysterious girl from earlier, Lisa, arrives and knocks them out. She then takes Dong-so to a safe place and introduces herself properly. Apparently, she is a novelist, who is currently writing an article about the A-Connects. Connects are supernatural humans like Dong-so who have the ability to regenerate their body parts, hence making them immortal. Before departing, the two exchange their numbers and promise to meet soon. On the other hand, a scared Lee approaches one of her colleagues and tells him about what she saw in Jin Sop's sketchbook. Later, she meets Jin Sop and requests to speak in private. The two then head to the rooftop and Lee confronts him for being a murderer. She explains that she saw all of his sketches, and his elaborate evil plans. Her colleague is keeping an eye on them from a corner, but unfortunately, his cell phone rings and this blows his cover. Alarmed, Jin Sop first knocks Lee out and then goes after the colleague. He is about to push him off the edge of the building, but just then, Lee's cell phone starts ringing, which has the high-hanging metals song as a ringtone. This hurts Jin Sop, and at the same time, Dong-so, who is nearby, gets a vision of the rooftop. Unfortunately, before he can reach the place, Jin Sop chucks a colleague from the building and kills him. He also finishes off Lee to tie up all the loose ends. All this time, the song keeps playing, and a terrified Dong-so witnesses the entire incident. The only clue he notices is the murderer's coat. Despite this, he rushes to the building by dodging numerous security checkpoints. He then races to the roof but doesn't find anyone apart from Lee's lifeless body. At this point, the entire building is swarming with cops and panicked people because of the two murders. Despite this, Dong-so risks it all and decides to find the killer who has his eye. He heads downstairs and starts searching through the department where Jin Sop works. To his luck, he suddenly notices a man with the same coat as the murderer and goes after him. Soon, Dong-so reaches the washroom and traps Jin Sop inside one of the toilet stalls. But unfortunately, Before he can take a look at his face, some security personnel arrive and take him away. It turns out that the officers tracked his activities through cameras, and are suspecting him of being the murderer. Dong-so tries his best to explain that the real murderer is still in the washroom, but no one listens to him. Fortunately, the novelist Lisa, again comes to his rescue and frees him. In the meantime, Jin-sop is left in utter disbelief at how someone saw him commit the murders. He spends hours thinking about it but doesn't come to a conclusion. But when he hears the same song and experiences a sharp pain in his eyes, he finally realizes that his transplanted eye is causing the problem. Whoever has the other eye can see through him and experience everything that he does. On the other hand, Dong-so takes Lisa home and explains everything to her from scratch. He starts from his childhood where he had fallen off a tree and broke his limbs, but miraculously, every bone repaired itself in seconds. His friends called him a monster and even his family isolated themselves from him. Dong-so then explains about the night where he was kidnapped by organ harvesters. He was cut open and his eyes were taken out. But due to his powers, he healed all the wounds and regained consciousness. He then put one of his eyes back and fled the scene before the bad guys approached him. Now, he is having first-person visions of the person who has his other eye. The person is none other than the most wanted murderer in the city. He knows this because of the elaborate sketches and other plans he saw in his visions. However, the problem is that he still hasn't seen the murderer's face. Hearing all this, Lisa is taken aback, but nonetheless, she decides to help him. She also gives him a pair of sunglasses to keep him off the radar, as his iconic eye patch has become easily recognizable. At night, the two go to a department store to get some supplies, where Dong-so notices his wanted poster on the wall. Alarmed, he quickly races outside, and tries running away, but at the same time, his eye starts hurting. Then, he gets a vision of the killer watching his YouTube video. This makes Dong-so realize that he can only get visions when the killer listens to his song A High Hanging Metals. Later that night, while he is brainstorming ideas to tackle the situation, he again gets a vision. This time, he sees his own sketch being drawn by the murderer. It appears as if Jin-sop is trying to warn Dong-so to stay away from his business. However, in the process, he accidentally shows his next targets, which happen to be 3 schoolgirls. Dong-so is taken aback by what he sees, and he decides to find the killer before any death occurs. He knows that the entire city is on the lookout for him, but at this point, he doesn't care. In the final scene, as Dong-so is out to find clues, he stumbles upon a street musician who is playing his song's cover. For a moment, he forgets all his worries and gets lost in the beauty of the song that he himself created. However, Dong-so's happy moment is short-lived as he once again gets a vision. Surprisingly, in it, he sees himself twitching in pain. This means that the killer is watching him from nearby. When Dong-so comes to his senses and looks around, he notices a shadowy figure observing him from a nearby car. Dong-so screams and immediately goes after him, but at the same time, Inspector Jang and his colleagues arrive and arrest him. Devastated, Dong-so is taken away to the police station. In the next scene, we see Inspector Jang and his colleagues trying to interrogate Dong-so. However, despite all their best methods, the latter doesn't want to reveal a single thing. One of the officers becomes enraged and tries to beat up Dong-so, but Inspector Jang calms him down and asks him to leave the room. Following this, he mentions that he knows Dong-so is not the killer, but the entire law system thinks otherwise. So, Inspector Jang warns Dong-so that if he wants to live, he will have to confess everything he knows. He even offers to take him upstairs, where they can have a private conversation. Reluctantly, Dong-so agrees, and the two head towards the roof. There, Dong-so comes clean and starts explaining everything right from the scratch. He explains that he is a Connect, which is a human being with special healing abilities. He even goes on to demonstrate his powers by breaking his wrists and repairing them instantly. Detective Jang is left in utter disbelief by what he sees, but nonetheless, he wants Dong-so to be imprisoned for the time being. However, the latter wants to go as he knows that the killer Jin-sop is attempting to kill some children soon. He gets out of his handcuffs and jumps off the building, despite Inspector Jang's best efforts to stop him. On the other hand, looking for answers, Jin-sop heads to the same surgeon that gave him the eye transplant. He knocks the old man out, then binds him to a chair. After this, he demands to know the story behind the mysterious eye. Left with no choice, the surgeon starts explaining his side of the story, and the scene cuts to a flashback. Some months ago, a wounded Jin-sop arrived at the surgeon's place to get himself operated on. He also offered to pay a lot of money to keep the operation a secret. The surgeon immediately accepted the deal and put Jin-sop to sleep with anesthesia. He conducted the surgery and saved him, but before applying the stitches, he decided to carry out an experiment. He put Dong-so's left eyeball inside Jin-sop, to test if it also had healing abilities. Hearing all this, Jin-sop feels betrayed, and he finishes off the surgeon instantly. In the next scene, the organ traffickers arrive at the surgeon's hideout but don't find him there. They check the CCTV footage and learn that Jin-sop was there, so the boss assigns a guy named Woo-jin to track Jin-sop every day. Days pass by and Dong-so is still in the shadows. He wants to go after the murderer, but doesn't want to get caught by the authorities again. So, in his place, Lisa decides to go after Jin-sop. One night, while she is out finding leads, she notices the organ harvester spy Woo-jin, lurking around. Lisa approaches him for answers, but the latter pulls out a knife on her. It appears as if Lisa is about to bite the dust, but surprisingly, she showcases her impressive moves and knocks Woo-jin down in an instant. She also finishes him off for good, so that nobody finds out about her. On the other hand, Dong-so gets excited when his favorite musician X covers his song. On his original song's video, X comments that they should meet someday and perform a duet. As a result, Dong-so is over the moon. But just then, his eye starts hurting, and he is contacted by the killer. Jin-sop mentions his number and asks Dong-so to call him as soon as possible. Obliging to the request, Dong-so dials the number and the two arch-nemesis finally talk for the first time. Dong-so inquires why the killer is doing all this, and the latter reveals that he is dying of cancer and doesn't have many days to live. So, he is going out with a bang. Before hanging up, he also discloses that his killing spree has just begun, and that he will contact Dong-so again. Meanwhile, Inspector Jang and his colleagues find Woo-jin's corpse in a stream, along with some camera footage of Jin-sop. This finally makes them suspect that Jin-sop is up to something. Later, Lisa approaches Dong-so in an abandoned cinema hall and reveals something shocking. She makes a small cut on her chest, and surprisingly, it heals itself. This indicates that she is also a connect. Seeing this, Dong-so is taken aback, but soon he becomes happy realizing that there are others like him. The two then hold hands and embrace each other with a kiss. Elsewhere, the killer Jin-sop picks his next victim. He disguises himself as Dong-so and kidnaps the famous musician X from a parking lot. In the next scene, we see Jin-sop torturing X with different techniques. After bashing him up, he contacts Dong-so and shows him the brutal condition of his favorite singer. He then threatens Dong-so to arrive at a location at 11 p.m., or else X will be killed. Meanwhile, the organ traffickers track Dong-so at his hideout and surround the building. Fortunately, Lisa knows a secret way from which he can escape, while she distracts the bad guys. Dong-so is reluctant to leave her alone, but when Lisa keeps insisting, he agrees. After Dong-so leaves, the organ traffickers approach Lisa and start attacking her. She puts up a good fight, but in the end, the guys outnumber her and tie her up. They then interrogate her about Dong-so, but as expected, Lisa doesn't say anything. Because of this, one of the guys gets enraged and slices a part of her face. To their surprise, Lisa heals herself instantly. This is when they realize that she is a connect as well. Now, the boss of the organ harvesting gang wants to sell Lisa for a large amount of money, but she has other plans. In the blink of an eye, she breaks from her bondage and attacks the guys with her impressive moves. Then at an opportune moment, she escapes from the place. Meanwhile, Inspector Jang and the cops go through the pictures retrieved from Woo-jin and finally learn of Jin-sop's address. They also watch the surveillance footage of X being abducted, and on a closer look, realize that it was Jin-sop disguised as Dong-so. With this, it becomes clear to them that Jin-sop is the actual murderer. One of the cops suggests sending the SWAT team there, but Jang decides to go there himself. On the other hand, It's 11 p.m. and Dong-so heads to the location where he was called to. He knows that Jin-sop is dying of cancer and will have little chance in one-on-one combat. However, little did he know that Jin-sop is known for his impressive brain, and not his fighting skills. After a while, Jin-sop arrives, donned in a hazmat suit. He then releases a poisonous gas, which instantly makes breathing difficult for Dong-so. After a while, he starts coughing vigorously and passes out. When he wakes up, he finds himself inside a car, tied to a chair. Jin-sop is driving, and with the two alone, he finally opens up about his killing addiction. He reveals that since he doesn't have many days to live, he wants everyone to know how it feels to be hopeless and scared. Moreover, he also likes when people scream in agony. Dong-so, who is half conscious, is hearing all this with desperation and anger. He tries digging deep to break his shackles, but the poisonous gas has made him too weak for now. In the next scene, we see Lisa heading to a circus alone. One of the organ harvesters has tailed her there, but Lisa quickly approaches him from behind and finishes him off. Then, she heads to a secluded part of the circus area, where an 8-foot giant is sleeping. It turns out that the giant is also a connect, who has healing abilities. He is so tall and deformed that he can't even speak the normal language. Lisa tells him that the time to take action has come, and the two depart from the place. Elsewhere, Dong-so finally wakes up and has regained his strength. Next to him, he sees the deformed body of the surgeon hung up on a pole. Jin-sop arrives and reveals that he plans to make a sculpture out of the surgeon soon. After this, he goes to a room and wheels a barely breathing X out. Dong-so is devastated to see his favorite musician in this condition. He starts apologizing to him for putting him in this condition, but as expected, X doesn't understand anything. Hence, Dong-so explains that X was kidnapped only to lure him to this place. He also reveals that Jin-sop is the murderer who has been wreaking havoc in the city. Meanwhile, Jin-sop finally reveals his evil intentions. Since the cancer inside his body is incurable, he wants to have Dong-so's body to become immortal. The plan is to connect his head to Dong-so's body. To test if the procedure will work, he cuts a finger each from Dong-so's as well as X's hand. Then, he exchanges the two sets of fingers. Surprisingly, both of them are connected instantly because of Dong-so's healing skills. After the successful experiment, Jin-sop turns on the cooling system and leaves the heads off to prepare himself. After a while, when Dong-so comes to his senses, he notices the room in a near-frozen state. Next to him, X seems to be unconscious, so Dong-so starts calling out his name. X finally wakes up, but he barely has any energy left in him. Still, he apologizes for getting in the way of Dong-so's investigation before passing away. The death of his favorite singer angers Dong-so so much that he finally gets the required energy to break free from his shackles. He then starts banging on the door to break it, and at the same time, Lisa, along with her giant friend also arrive outside. Jin-sop hears the loud banging sound and goes there to inspect. To his surprise, he encounters Lisa, who is also a connect. The two get into a fight and match each other stride for stride, but at the same time, someone arrives outside. It is Inspector Jang who has come with one of his subordinates. Jin-sop finishes off the latter quickly, and returns back to take care of the connects. Meanwhile, taking advantage of the distraction, Lisa frees Dong-so and tells him to finish off the evil Jin-sop once and for all. After a while, the two finally go face to face. Jin-sop has a gun in hand, and he fires at Dong-so several times, but to no avail. The latter can now heal himself instantly, without breaking any sweat. After this, he reaches Jin-sop and starts beating him up. In the process, he also recovers his left eye back, leaving Jin-sop screaming in agony. But just as Dong-so is about to kill him, Inspector Jang arrives at the scene. He requests Dong-so to let Jin-sop go, despite the latter being a cold-blooded murderer. In return, he promises to wipe off all records of the connects. Dong-so agrees, but just then, another problem arises. The national SWAT team has found out about the commotion and has dispatched several hundred soldiers to take care of the situation. The show ends as Lisa and Dong-so get out of the building, but they are soon surrounded by several helicopters. That was all of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Click the like button and subscribe to watch more videos like this, and don't forget to turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.